welcome back to our series, Socialist Gamers. Just to recap, on episode 2 of this series, we set up the beginnings of our town, created a bus and shopping area, as well as education and sports for our citizens. We completed a road that connects our town area all the way to our oil extraction and storage area, and completed our export network with an oil truck selling oil at this Western country's custom house. We built a vehicle depot to facilitate the export route, and finally finished by building this gas station so that we can provide fuel for our vehicles. Now that we've set up a proper city, I was going to change the name. You can see it's currently called Kirarush, but that's not terribly intuitive. So I think in the spirit of our socialist theme, we shall call it Leninsk. Perfect. Sometimes you will notice that the map has pre-populated areas, such as here, that have names, but some of these other areas, which appear to be quite large, don't have a name. You'll only discover that they'll automatically be assigned a name after you start building structures. And so for ease of use, we can rename this area, since it's our oil extraction area, the Russian word for oil, or neft, and we'll call it neft 1. Since presumably we're going to have additional areas that we can add, and I'll just keep the same nomenclature so that it's easy to track. We can leave Svedava, since that's our custom post, alone. And this industry doesn't have anything yet, so I'm not going to rename this, but I'm having a hard time pronouncing this, especially with that R symbol. So now we have finished our construction. I double-checked by running this game outside of this video to ensure that we do have supply of meats, as well as food, clothes, and electronics to our store without needing forklifts, and that's indeed the case. And we have our citizens walking over to be educated and participate in sports, as you can see here. So, as I mentioned in our prior video, I was planning on creating a farm area as our next order of business, as that would be instrumental to providing crops for our populace. Crops can be used as the input for multiple industries, and they're also one of the longest items in the game that take time to grow and harvest, and so setting those up earlier rather than later generally is wise. So looking at our map, let's pull up our mini-map. I was planning on using some of this large flat area for crops, which I think would be perfect. Again, we want to avoid this hill, since, as I mentioned before, this game is really unforgiving when it comes to any type of complicated terrain. There's really not too much room for farms over here, and it's going to be too close to our oil area, so I think what we'll do is, as we drag our road along this river to then create another city down by the coast, we'll just have an inland area for farming. So let's do that now. So we already have our road extending all the way here, and first order of business is to continue this. And once again, if you're joining us after a while and you're wondering what this music is, this is not the stock music that comes to the game, but rather a soundtrack that I found on YouTube, and I'm including the details in the description of this video. Okay, so we do have our nice road, and I think this area here will serve as a nice branch point. So we can have a road going down here. this will designate our farm area. So let's move from our city. Again, you have to remember how big these maps are, so while it does look like it's fairly far away, you can see once I move my cursor on the mini-map, this black area here represents our city, and this is where we are. So this is barely 1 square away, and you can see that the map is actually 6 squares across. So again, don't let the distance fool you. This game is really expansive, and developers encourage you to make sure that everything is widespread. So let's look at the farm menu. Farms consist of an agro farm, and this is essentially a structure that you hook your farms up to, and it automatically sends out vehicles to sow, harvest, and then transport grain to grain storage. And then we have small, medium, and big farm fields. So this is how the big farm field is quite big, as you can appreciate. The medium farm field is about the size of 3 typical buildings, and the small farm field is actually pretty small. So, reading the developers as well as commenters' information on Steam, in general, the rule is that for pretty intensive production, one agro farm should have between 8 to 12 large farm fields. If you build any more than that, you generally have redundancies in that you have crops waiting to be harvested that cannot get to in time. Otherwise, you can go somewhere between 20 and 26 medium fields. And I do not bother with small farm fields. I don't think they're worthwhile. We'll take a look at the mechanic to see why that is. So in terms of our industry, I will plan on harvesting crops and eventually building a food factory, which makes food, as the name implies, and then one factory which will be our distillery to make alcohol. And we can supply that to our citizens and export the rest to make money. So what I generally do is I create a separate agro farm and farm grain storage for each of these industries. I find that if I create just one agro farm, I don't have enough crops to supply the food factory and the distillery at maximum capacity. And so we can go ahead and take a look at a rough measure of where we need to situate our industry. So I'm zooming out, and I'm looking at the big farm field, and so we can see how many we can place along this road. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can put 10 of these just about ending right around there. Oh, let me zoom in. Why it's not allowing me to build this. There we go. Another little bug. And we do want to have 2 farms with farm fields surrounding them. So what I will do is I'll start putting down our agro farms in the middle because I want them to be equidistant. So I'll actually facilitate that by creating an intersection, and then I'll have farms and farm fields on both sides of this intersection. So we will put down, the middle would be somewhere right there. So let's zoom in. So we will put down an agro farm, and I know in advance, if I click on the agro farm, you can see that it only stores 136 tons of crops. And if I click on or hover over the food factory, I see that it uses 72 tons of crops per day. Likewise, the distillery uses 64 tons of crops. 30 tons of crops per day and 42 tons of crops. So the food factory uses 42 tons of crops at maximum production, and the distillery 30 tons of crops. Now that is per workday. But you have to remember that farms do not produce crops every day. You have to grow first have to sow the fields, then let them grow, and then harvest them. So it's actually a lot slower producing than a lot of other resources. So with that in mind, I will plan to hook up a grain storage to both of my agri-farms, and the grain storage can actually store up to 800 tons of crops, so that is generally the way to go. So here is my agro-farm. And you can see it has a road connection and again a factory connection. And you need the factory connection to accommodate your grain storage silo. So we can plan on placing it right around here. So it says we need to flatten the road since this is not totally flat. We can go ahead and pay for that using rubles. And so there we go. And now we're able to plan out. There we go. Plan out our agro farm. I will then connect this to grain storage as I described. And this will be a passive transfer again because it has a direct connection between two buildings, so I don't need any forklifts. And I actually don't want any forklifts because it would take forever to transfer and fill up 800 tons for this grain storage. Since I am not planning on producing food right away, we can leave this as is. I will say that, again, for future planning, I do plan on having a livestock area. And so that'll probably come into play down here, since you'll still need another area to supply grain for livestock. So again, I like to create 3 separate areas. So let me delete this road since that was just a marker, and then we can place our second farm area. So you can see because of the orientation of the grain storage, I have to do it the opposite way since I can't move that factory connection. And again, so this area will be sufficient because it's already flat. And then I'll put down my grain storage, and it'll be nice and symmetric. So now I can start placing my farm fields. So you can take the big farm fields and you can see, if I zoom in, it does have a road connection. And since this is so big, you definitely want to make sure it's as straight as possible to avoid losing a lot of space. And it's really off, so let's see if we can, there we go, I think that's as good as it will be. So there we go, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, and so we're going to shoot for 10. So what I want to do is create, which I should have done before, but as you can see here, I want to create a road in between these farm fields, and then essentially create a road network that will allow the most efficient travel for all my farm vehicles. And then we'll finish out these farms. Yeah, so you basically want to make sure that your farm, within reason as much as possible, you want to make sure that your farms are located pretty centrally, because what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to wait for all of this equipment that exits the farm to make its way to the farm field so it can perform all the tasks. And so you generally want to make sure it's relatively central to make it the most efficient. I'm just seeing here if I can fit 3 instead of 2 farms by really squeezing this in, so just bear with me. I can see, so let's see, so there's a little road fragment from the other farm, so let's see if we can squeeze 3 farms in. Yes, perfect. So that's pretty good. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 11 large farms, and I'll be planning to supply grain for this station. And we'll basically recreate this same pattern on the other side. I think we'll have to do this road here since that's blocking. I don't know why this is acting up this way. It should be able to just put a straight road in, but it doesn't do that if I email. Alright, and then we just have to remember that we'll have a train running here. So this is fine. If we put a farm out here, we can still have the train go either here or potentially cross this road and go down along the river. So that should be fine for future planning. Now, so zoom in a little bit. So here's our large farm again, and then we'll just try to see if we can place it across. That's pretty straight. So that's 1, 2. Oh, here we're getting to trouble. So we're probably going to have to change our lineup. So that's the closest. We have to do this little part that we created, and then it's perfect. So we squeezed it in, so it's not exactly symmetric, but it works. So we have 3 here, and we should be able to easily squeeze in 2 over here. I'm not sure why it's doing that. It's a weird bug, so let's try it again. I've never really seen that before, so I don't know what the issue is. Let's see if we can change the angle. Farm, food and crops. There we go. So I'm not sure why it's out there, but here is our farm. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. We're creating a road to give a shortcut to all the stuff that we plan to do. Again, I'm really not sure what's going on. This is not typical behavior. Let me try here. It's really kind of becoming really finicky. Let's see. Nope. Just doesn't like these angles. So here's 1. Yeah, this is, I'm not sure why it's being so long. Okay, here we go. That worked. That's much more difficult than it had to be, but anyway, let's continue to create these roads. You know, I'm just going to create the farms. So we'll fit in 1. We can only fit in 2 over here, so copy the same thing. And then we should be able to hopefully fit in 4. It won't be perfect. So, yeah, I'm not sure why we were... Oh, I see. Let's see. So we were able to fit in... Yeah, we'll only be able to fit in 2 since our road is opposite of this other side. I really don't understand. Here we go. So there's something weird going on with the zoom, but hopefully that'll resolve. Or maybe not. Alright, it seems it wants a really tight zoom, which is fine. Alright, so that's the end there. I'll probably have to loop this back into that main road. So yes, we'll have to just perfect. That works. We can delete this part. So now we just have to figure out where to put the rest of our farm. So we should hopefully be able to do 4 over here, because that way it'll be symmetric. So yeah, it's doing this thing. Okay, here we go. Alright, so we have 1. This is going to be next to us. It's being very picky here, and I don't know why. Let me try changing the angle. Alright, there we go. That works there. That works there. And I think we'll have to create this. Perfect. So we still have 5 plus 6. So we've recreated the same number of plots. So this looks good. I think we can go ahead and finish this. Oh, actually, so this is a problem because I did not plan this well. So you can see I made a mistake since I put this road here, and then I have my connection to my grain factory, but the output goes straight south, so there's no way that I can put in a factory connection. So I'm going to have to change this and this. So I was a little bit too hesitant to create this area. Oh, I'm sorry, I was a bit too quick. So what I'll need to do is I'll have to bend it, so just like that. So I basically need to curve the connection so that my other factory can go right there. And actually, this is actually good. This is pretty good that this happened, so you can learn from my mistakes. So perfect. So we can do that. So so both the food factory that we have here would fit, and our distillery would fit as well. The only other issue is we're going to have to be able to have a rail connection when we export this food down the line, so I will have to get rid of these 2 farm fields. I apologize, but I did not account for that. And we'll eventually likely have to change these roads to bridges, because you generally don't want to have a rail connection that crosses at grade, creates traffic. And we also will not be able to have a factory connection going across the road, if you remember. So this will probably be a bridge in the future, but we'll worry about that later. So this is fine. I think this is livable. We have 10 farm fields per single farm. Alright, so we'll just let this run and finish constructing. So it looks like, yeah, we have to... And it looks like I need to let this run since it's not constructing on its own. And again, I know it's a bit of a pain to use these construction overlays, since again, we don't have the option to just have everything work, or everything be constructed with one click. However, you can see how I made a mistake, and so if I had already built, or ordered everything to be built for money, I would have lost all of that money moving around the grain storage. So it does really pay off to be patient and use this system of constructing things, although I don't totally admit that it's a bit of a pain. Alright, so don't mind the sound. We're just basically finishing all of this construction. Alright, so I can make sure that we have everything on track. This part's not finished. We have a connection to every single farm plot. This part needs to be finished. But yes, every single farm plot that we have has a connection, and then these little guys we can finish later since we're not going to use them. We do need this, however. And so the only other thing is we do need to connect our farms to the main road, since otherwise our equipment won't be able to get out to work the farms. Okay, and so this has a name. As you saw, when we first started building it, this did not have a name, but because this is now an area that has a lot of buildings, it automatically got assigned Lyod Road. I apologize if I butchered that, but we're going to rename this so that the name is fairly intuitive. And we can just rename this city area. Here we go. We'll rename this. Let's see. I want to rename it. Oh, here we go. Cropville. Alright, so the only other thing, I'm sorry, there seems to be these little small areas which do not fill in. So let me quickly finish those. Alright, looks like we should be good. I was going to say, so since we have a lot of farm equipment, which are vehicles, they will need to obtain gas, otherwise they will, much like our truck in the last episode, just not work. And so we will need to put in for a gas station. So we will go ahead and check. So can we fit one in here? No. Not here either. So we can probably put one in. I would like to have it centrally located, so it's a shame we can't put it there. Now this one, there's not going to be a lot of traffic since this is just reserved for the farm equipment, so I'm not going to bother putting in a larger one-way, so I think this little smaller gas station will work out. I think we'll just put it over here, kind of out of the way. I mean, these vehicles will have a little bit longer to go to fuel up, but I mean, it's not going to make a huge difference. There's really no other central location. So we'll put this right there. Alright, and then once that finishes building, we'll have to put in the settings for automatic fuel. Oh, actually, no, this should be fine. I can still build a bridge in the future. So again, we'll do $1 plan, auto purchase of 10 tons. Alright. So now what we do is, this is the farm menu, so this tells you that this farm needs vehicles in order to plow the fields and harvest, and it also needs to have field names assigned. So if I didn't have two farms and this was in an isolated area, I would just leave this on auto search and change the criteria for how far to search, and then the farm would automatically add those fields. However, because I do have two farms, I don't really want any strange assignments where one farm gets more fields than the other, so I'll just do it manually. So for that, we just move out, and we're basically going to have everything on this side be assigned to this farm. So 10 fields. And then for this farm, everything on this side belongs to it. Oh. So make sure to miss anything. Yep. And so we have our assigned farm fields. So in order for us to plow the fields and sow them, we will need equipment. And so we have harvesters, covered hull, and sowing. So for sowing, there's only one choice currently. So because we chose 1960 as our starting year, we only have this one choice. So in general, the limiting factor for farm growth are the harvesters and the trucks. Tractors, although they are slow, they're generally not a limiting factor. So the ratio that I like to go with is 3 tractors and then 4 to 5 harvesters and covered hull each. And so we'll start out with 3 tractors, we'll put down 4 harvesters, and then we want to do a covered truck to haul our crops. So you can see that this truck has the largest storage, so it can haul 10 tons of crops. This is the second largest, which is 9.6 tons. So the other difference you can see is this truck with 10 tons can go up to 62 kilometers and has a 118 kilowatt engine, versus this one has 70 kilometers and 132 kilowatt engine. So this truck is actually faster, both in speed and engine power. And engine power comes in with regard to how fast the vehicle accelerates. So you will remember that we have an asphalt road all throughout here. And an asphalt road's maximum speed is 60 kilometers an hour. So actually going with a faster truck speed-wise is not going to help me here, since they're limited by the road. If I had an asphalt road, then I would have a difference with the faster truck, actually being useful. However, since there are a lot of turns on these roads, I do need something that will accelerate faster and get up to speed faster than something that can't. And so for that reason, I think we'll go with this covered truck, and we'll get 4 of these. And then we'll do the same thing for this farm. So 3 tractors, 4 harvesters, and 4 of these. Again, the difference between 10 tons and 9.6 tons of crops is really minimal. And so the only other thing that we need to do, based on this warning message, is that we don't have a power supply for this. And of course, we need a power supply to supply our farms. And so for this, we can put a substation. I'm planning on the substation powering our industry. That'll come on either side of this eventually. And so we can put this right here. Perfect. And then we can start to plan our electricity. So I think what we'll do is we'll have our continuation of the large power wires coming down here, and then they'll split, and I'll put a transformer here and a medium-sized wire going here. So this is where I'm going to put down a medium voltage switch. Let's see. Yeah, we can just go. Let's see. So the train will be up there, but it'll have to cross. We can just put it down here. And we will need a power transformer. I'm sorry, that was not the right size. It would be helpful if I got the right size going. So we need the high voltage power switch. Sorry about that. So yes, let's put it on this side, and then we have a power transformer. And then this will connect to the road. this will connect the two, and then we will need to drag our large power line. So we need to find our, which is right there. So we can put that there, and basically run this along. Not the prettiest, but again, power lines, there's not really any cosmetic power lines that look great, but these are, the most powerful ones, so we have to go with the ones that have the best use. Alright, so that works. And then so this splitter will have another power line going out, so we can supply everything downstream. And so then we just have to connect our transformer with the medium voltage to power our farm. So what I'll do is I'll probably use this one. Now power lines, you can see cannot go direct at right angles, so if I try to put this one out direct, it says angle of connection is too sharp, so I'm going to go at about 45-degree angle, and so that's what I'm trying to do here. Just curve it around here without it being too expensive. Alright, so here we go. Now we should be able to put it down here and down there. And we'll probably have it cross here and enter our... Yep, perfect. So this should power once we complete our electric grid construction. The only other thing we have to be cognizant of is, since we'll have industry, we will need to plan for a bus stop. Likely 2 bus stops in the future, because that'll have to supply both of our factories with people. And I'm honestly, so sometimes I try to combine warehouses. So if I didn't have these farm fields here, I could have both of my food factory and my alcohol factory output to a single warehouse and a single train coming in to get both products. I found that, generally speaking, it's actually easier to keep things separate. I don't really want to have a really crowded train, and then if I have a warehouse share multiple items, that automatically cuts down the storage of another item. So if I say produce much more food than alcohol, although I can change the ratio of the limit of things I can store in a warehouse, it still ends up being too much of a micromanagement issue, and so I'm fine with keeping our food supply separate from our alcohol supply. But again, if you have a preference of trying to put together as much as possible in terms of storage, I would probably have not put these fields here, and I would build our factory for food here, our distillery here, and then just have them feed into a single warehouse. But as it is, we'll have our factory output to a warehouse with a train coming in, and the same thing over here. Alright, and so we won't worry about the bus stop, but I'll probably have to put a bus stop eventually, one down here and one down here, so it supplies workers, but since my farms don't need workers, we don't have to worry about that. So I think we should be good to go. And if everything works, we should see our farm vehicles going out, and perfect, there we go. So there is our glorious agriculture, and I think this will be a good screenshot for this current episode. Alright, perfect. So as you can see, the tractors are pretty slow, and they'll essentially go out on their own and automatically start to plow the fields. Now, I believe that the way that they do this is they go to the first or the closest field and then make their way outward. Pretty sure that that's how it works. And so again, that's part of the reason why you want to keep things as compact as possible, So I didn't really want to put my factory over here and then have all these farm fields south of it, because they would travel, and on average they would have a bigger distance to travel than this current way that we have everything situated. And so let's see where they're actually going. So there it is, it's turning in, so it's going in to plow this field. And you can actually click on the farm itself and it'll tell you what's going on with all of the fields. So it says that it needs to sow all of these fields that belong to it, that are assigned to it. And then this individual field, you can see the tractor entering it, and there's the tractor getting ready, and now it's starting to plow and sow. And so there is our marker of that happening on the farm output, and here's the sowing progress in the field. And this is the start of our glorious Soviet agriculture. Okay, so that's going. We've set up a farm. This should provide plenty of food and alcohol once everything is finished growing and we start harvesting food. We can potentially send in a truck or build a station to get crops to export as well. However, crops are generally very cheap, and so I find that sometimes is not very cost effective, especially with the amount of gas that you have to use. As I mentioned before we started building this, you do need crops for some other industries, namely chemicals, and so we will have to, we actually like to have a little bit of an excess amount that we can then use for the train to pick up to basically transfer to the other industries. Alright, so we'll leave that alone. Again, leave our glorious Soviet agriculture to its business and go back to our city. So let's make sure that everything is still running smoothly. We have lots of people going to our store, and the store has all the stuff that we need. We have enough sellers, and so we don't have people in a line in front of the shop, so that's good. We can then look to see what's going on. So if I pause this, my happiness is overall not terrible, although it could be better. And so what do the people want? It says that they don't have a job, which makes sense because we don't have any industry. It says one worker cannot work because there's no kindergarten. They're not happy because they don't have a pub or a tavern, so we probably should build that, especially since we'll have alcohol coming online soon. Also complaining that they can't enjoy culture. One citizen is unable to get meat, so I'm not sure why, because we have plenty of meat, so that I'll chuck up to a quirk. 30 citizens are unable to participate in sports, so that doesn't make any sense because we have plenty of sporting facilities up here. But we can just double check to make sure they're staffed. If they're not staffed, they can't do it. There's a perpetual complaint of not being able to go to a church. In our scenario, we don't have a populated map, so we don't have any churches, and so there's nothing we can do about this apart from later in the game. And one citizen wants to go to a hospital. So, there's no sense in building any more residential buildings until we get some of these needs satisfied. So I'm just going to wait till day comes because it's really hard to see. And I'm just looking to make sure everything is fine. I'm just clicking on this oil storage, so we still have quite a bit of oil, and we're increasing the supply of oil even though we are exporting. And then we can take advantage of the ledger to see what's going on with our money. And so you can see here that we're selling $534 worth of, in this case, oil, since that's the only thing we're exporting. But we're getting $534 from Western countries. We're importing $3,300, and that's fuel and supplies for our shopping center. And so we basically are losing money, but we're losing slightly less money because we are exporting oil. And that's this month. We still are in the starting phase. We can't really look at last month, but this is what's going on so far. Alright, so now that it's day, I'm going to pause, and let's see what's going on with our sports equipment. equipment. So we do have staffing for most of them. There's no one, so there are people visiting this, and most of them are empty, and then no one's waiting in front. So I'm not sure what to do about that. Our kindergarten has staff and has babies, and our school does have one teacher. There we go. And so it certainly has enough staff to teach kids, and it's not overloaded. So the only other thing we don't want to double check is, can residents of this building get up to our resources? So the answer is yes. As you can see, we haven't completed these footpaths, which I will do. But even without them, everyone can get to the sports equipment and to the education facilities. And they can get to the bus stop, which is not currently open, as well as the store. So I'm just going to finish some of these. Alright. And that one. And I think that should do it. Yep. I mean, I might as well finish this, but we're not going to use this just yet to get that building out. We don't need to build another building. And so we'll pause again. So I think the major other complaint they had, besides not being able to work, is culture and pub. So I don't know about building culture just yet, but I will be happy to build them a pub. And so that goes under either food and culture or equipment for citizens. You can find them in both menus. So here it is. It's a pub. And then you can see that the pub actually does not have a factory connection. So whatever I do, the only way I can supply it with alcohol is either by buying it directly using the same menu as the other structures like the store, or I can truck it in. Since it's fairly small, I'll probably just put it along any of these areas. We can probably just fit it in here, since we can't. This space is a little bit irregular because of that substation, so I think this is fine. And then we'll just have to manually manually truck in alcohol. So the only other thing I forgot to mention is we actually don't have a road connecting our warehouse, which is bad for two reasons. One is I can't have a truck interact with this at all, so I can't load or unload anything. And then if there's a fire, I don't have a way of my fire vehicles getting to it. So we'll go ahead and build the road here, and then the same thing here. I don't have to connect this loading station on both sides, but since I'm not really planning on using anything here, we can just do that here. And so that being said, that segues us to the fire station. And I want to put that down sooner rather than later. We took all this time to build up our Cropville area of agriculture, our town, and our oil oil sector. A single farm fire station. So this is the fire station, and I do want to situate it in a relatively central location since I don't want to build 3 fire stations at this point. I will probably have to build one for the farm eventually, but at this point we'll gamble. I do need to have it within walking distance though, so let's see if it gives us the option of seeing that. So if we select the fire station, and I start to build it out in construction mode, if I select the option of walking distance, that does not give me that. Alright, so it looks like I have to finish it to know if my citizens can reach it. So let me do it the old-fashioned way so I can take a look, so I can see that this is about close to the fire station, and this structure is 325 meters. Let me see if it works the other way. So how about if we put down the fire station here again, building, will it tell me how far it is? Yes, so let's see if we can make this a little bit more clear. So we do have this path, this footpath. So if we put a footpath here, connect it, and that'll provide bus station access. And then we drag this footpath over to here, then have a pub connection. Will that be enough of a distance for them to get to my fire station? So again, we click on our building, and we can see that it's not sufficient. Oh, I'm sorry. So this has to be finished. We have to finish this footpath first. All right, now we can go. And yes, we can see that we're just at the limit of how far they're able to walk, which is 377 meters. That's perfect. So that means I can build this fire station here, and it will actually be staffed and ready to use. And so that's kind of an example of what you want to do with each building that you plan, especially if it requires citizens, which I know the fire station does. If they couldn't reach, my options would be to build another building next to this that would staff my fire station, or I do have a bus station here, so I would have to create a bus route with a bus stop somewhere near here that's within walking distance. So what we do here, we see that this has voltage, so it's working. However, it says you have 0 employees, and that's because you need fire trucks. So let's go ahead and buy some fire trucks. So again, going back to what I said initially about dollars versus rubles, you can see that dollars, I cannot buy anything for dollars. So there's no fire truck currently available in my 1960 year to buy with dollars. And so the only choice I have is to buy a fire truck with rubles. And so I have a speed level 10 fire truck and a speed level 4. So we're going to go with one speed level 10. And I don't want it to have 10 citizens, so we'll just do 5. And in order to ensure that this is actually staffed, we'll add this to the list of places that people in this building can go to. So there's 5 citizens here, and I believe we had 5 teachers, 5 staff and teachers in the school, so the percentage should be the same as the school, which would be around, that's good enough, so 23% because we want people in the school, 21% for fire, shopping center, and then the rest they can determine. Alright, and that's how to build a fire station and staff it. So I'm going to just let this run, but the only other thing I'll do is, because our town is named after Lenin, we can't forget the most important part of this game, and that's the bling. So we're going to place a little bit, since we have this little area here that we can't otherwise use for anything, I'm going to add a little bit of bling so they know exactly who they're working for. And that way, you have no choice but to go past our great leader on your way to the bus, to the pub, and the shopping center. It's not bad. Alright, so again, let's see how this goes. And let's actually quickly take a look at how our farms are doing. So we can see we're still sowing. So this gives you an idea of how large these farm fields are. And then also these are starting tractors because we're starting in the earliest year, so they generally get faster when more technology develops. But we're sowing about 25% of our field. And then they're going to go to all these other fields after they're done. Alright, and then we have just about 8.8 million rubles, so we spent 1.2 million rubles. And we have actually quite a lot of dollars. We haven't been using dollars too much, we're only using them really for importing stuff like gas and shopping center items. But we do have a little bit of an offset in the form of this export. So So if this oil keeps building up, I'm going to add another oil export route. So I'll buy one more truck for an oil tank, high capacity. And as I mentioned before, I could just manually reassign that same route to this new truck. However, I can take my existing road vehicle that's already on this route, and I can click copy schedule to another vehicle, and then locate my truck on the map, copy it, and now it says start, and so I can send it on its way. An alternative way of doing the same thing without having to involve the clicking on the actual vehicle is if I go to my list of lines. Here's my list of lines, so I have the one line of oil export, and I can double click this, and then copy this to a vehicle as well. And so I have several redundant ways of doing it, which is nice. Once I have a lot of vehicles, it gets really tedious to track down exactly which vehicle is doing what, so I can easily access it through the line menu. And I can look just at trains, just at roads, ships, etc. Alright, so this should bring in a little bit more money. I don't really need to buy anything else at the moment from the custom house, so I think this is progressing quite well. So let's see what else we can do. Look at our population. So we have 79 unemployed workers. So we really have to get people jobs. So I don't really want to start doing agriculture because that will require a railroad. And a railroad network is expensive. So I think what we can do is set up a construction office and some gravel industry, because then we can build these simple gravel roads and it won't cost us any money. And so for that, we would actually have to find something applicable on the map that we can get gravel from. So let's see. It's usually a tan-colored rock material, so kind of like this, but I will have to double check if we can use this. So for that, we will go to gravel, coal, iron buildings and click on the gravel quarry and see. So I actually can get gravel out of here, which is not a bad choice. Again, it does tell you though the game does not like this since it says you need to flatten the terrain. So let's look around to see if there's any other areas that are more suitable. A lot of mountains. What you'll encounter is a flat area with the same type of appearance, and you would be able to get gravel from there much easier, but I am not seeing anything else that's nearby. Now, for whatever reason, gravel is not one of the resources on the map, the mini-map. Unlike the other typical resources like oil. I think it's just because it's more common, and so the most of the map would be full. But that might be something the developers could add. So this is the area. This is still a mountain, but you can see how much flatter it is, and so this is a good gravel area. However, this is really far away from our town, so I'm not going to try that. I think this is not a bad area for a gravel industry. I think we're going to have to bite the bullet and flatten an area. And that way you can see how that works. So I don't want to pay for flattening since it's really expensive, so that'll segue into building a construction center. So if we go to our infrastructure menu, we can see that we have, the construction menu. We can see that we have a construction office. And this is what it looks like. It just basically has a road connection. And it looks a lot like the vehicle depot that we've already built. So we can just put it here since we're not really doing... well, let's see. I want to put it on this side since we do have electricity coming out here, so I don't want to put it there and block my electricity. I apologize. I don't know why it is doing this, but it doesn't seem to like that angle. There we go. So this would be our construction office. That looks okay. And then we can finish this. So construction office has all of the things that you need to build buildings and roads on your own, provided that you have the resources. So if we click on this, these are all the resources that it needs to be fully operational. Now, you can build things without having all of this, especially if, say, you just want to build a road, you don't need steel or bricks for a road. But if you want to build all the things available in the building menu, this has to be completely supplied. So besides giving them resources, you also need to have vehicles, which is called mechanisms in this menu. And then you need to tell it what to build. And so I generally like the strategy of having separate construction center to construction offices to only build connection and infrastructure type of projects, and then ones separately for buildings. The construction office can only be in charge and actively construct several things, and so if you're constructing a large area that you're planning to transform into industry or other buildings, they really get overwhelmed and it bogs everything down. So that's why I generally have two construction areas side by side in pairs, doing infrastructure and roads, and the other one just doing buildings. And then this is just an option to tell it to search for projects, and I usually max this out. So because we don't have anything apart from, well, we don't have anything now, and we're only going to have gravel and workers in the near future, we're just going to set this to infrastructure. So I'm only going to build this one, but it'll show you how the mechanic works. The other reason why you want the construction center is it's one of the few ways, or the only way, to level terrain with no costs, but for that it needs to have equipment. And so if I go here and I start buying equipment, I will buy one of each, which is an excavator, a bulldozer, a paver, and a roller. So you actually just need the excavator to terraform terrain, but I just like to buy all the stuff since I know that this is going to specialize in roads. The other thing this needs is people or workers. And so we will set our bus station as the place to get workers. But it still needs to get the workers to and from the construction center and into the project that it's building. And so for that, it either needs a personal car or a bus. Personal car only fits 3 to 4 passengers, and so it's not very efficient. So what I'll do is buy a bus. So these are our options for buses. We have one that fits 80 passengers. Again, the speed here doesn't really matter much because we have gravel roads, so there's a speed limit. So I think something that has the most passengers would make sense, and this thing has the highest engine power next to this, which only carries half as much passengers. So yeah, I think we're going to go with this. And so this should be enough to create our roads and transport people to and from and terraform. So let's check this out. So if I go here, I should now be able to select my option and lower terrain. I'll zoom in and increase size, and you can see that I have my lone excavator lowering my terrain very slowly. I could buy extra excavators to lower this faster, however, I only have limited slots in my construction office, and I know that I will need those slots for other items, so I generally just bear the speed issue. However, there's nothing preventing you from building another construction center and, say, putting like 4 or 5 excavators in there to have a really fast terraform type of service. So again, let's see what we would need to make gravel. So the first step would be to mine stone, and here's our gravel quarry. So let's see what we would need to do. So again, I want something that's fairly green, that has the highest quality, so all of these would suffice. And so let's see if we can hold the mouse button and actually construct this. So it's really slow, but it does look like that some of these are turning green. And so that's a good sign. And there we go. So we can actually, there is our gravel quarry. And what we will need to do is supply it with a road. And here you see, if I try to drag this road directly down, it says too steep of a descent, so the game won't let me. So this is one of those difficult issues with terrain. So game, in case you haven't heard this enough, really hates elevation. And this doesn't even look that bad. It's a relatively smooth descent, but the game still says no. So the first thing to check is, even though it tells me I can't go directly, oh, here we go. It actually does find a place where I can do it. Otherwise, the other option is to select small spot, so you can build it here, and then try one more, and then try one more, and you can usually finagle your way to create a road where you want to go by just piecing together short segments. Now, that's really a major oversight, because if you can piece together short segments, it really should give you the option of doing it in one click, but again, that's something that developers need to address. So in this case, I actually can find a good single road, and so we'll just go with that option. So let's find it again. There it is, and we'll hold our right mouse button, and because we have a construction office now, I don't have to pay. And we'll just wait for this road to be cleared. Now keep in mind that the construction office doesn't work all over the map. There's a certain distance, and I believe it's limited by that 3-kilometer radius, or 3,000 meters, which is the maximum it can search for projects. So if I went to another corner of the map and I tried to do this, it would ask me for money to do this terraforming unless I had another construction area in the vicinity, construction office. Okay, so that will be our little road, and then we'll connect it to our main road. Let's see if we can go over this. The answer is no. Let's see if we can go. So again, we'll flatten this part. And then if we go down here, yes, so what I'll do is I'll extend this. Connect this up here, perfect. And we have our connection. So gravel, so this is, even though it's called a gravel quarry, this is where you get stone, and then you'll have to transport stone to a gravel processing plant, which will actually process the items into gravel. And so we can set that up down here, extend this road, and then I'll plan for our gravel processing. And so here's the gravel processing plant. This is what it looks like. It has conveyor belts for output, but it has no input apart from a road. Now, this is a major issue with this. Most other resource processing plants have input and output by conveyor belt, but I suppose it does make sense, since stone is quite large. You might not be able to fit it on a conveyor belt in real life, but that means that the only way to input this stone from the quarry is to truck it in. So that's just something to be aware of. So I think we can build it. You don't want this to be really far from your stone source, since it takes a while to truck it back and forth. So I think we can put it down here. And again, I just want a future-proof thing. So if our rail is going to go here, I don't want stuff to crowd this. So what I'll do is, instead of having this road continue at a right angle, I am going to angle it along this lake. And then I'm going to put the gravel processing plant at an angle parallel to it, since that way I will be able to ensure that as gravel becomes more important and other industries need it, I'll be able to hook up a train to load gravel and transport it. So here we go. I think this works well. So flatten this and start to put this down. And once we have our gravel, we definitely want to store it because this does not have a lot of storage. And to store it, we have two options. We have a large and small aggregate storage. So the small aggregate storage, you can see, just has a road connection. So this isn't just for trucks to haul finished gravel. The large aggregate storage obviously stores more, but they also can load trains. And furthermore, I can put down conveyor belts. The input of the gravel coming into the storage is located to the north, so in the center of the screen, and then the output you can see are these pairs of two conveyor belt outputs at the bottom. And so if I have industry that needs gravel, I can then create a conveyor belt system that feeds gravel to downstream industries, and then and we'll also be able to connect to a train, loading and unloading dock. So I do want to maintain maximum compatibility, and so what I'll do is I'll put it in an angle here, because that way I can make sure that any conveyor belts that I built in the future will be able to take full advantage of this. Perfect. And although this aggregate storage, going back to the conveyor belt, although this aggregate storage has 4 inputs, I cannot mix the items that are stored. So I can still only have one item stored at a time, much like my oil tank. So I can only store gravel or iron or some kind of other ore, but I cannot mix the two. And so this will allow me to theoretically hook up to 4 processing plants for gravel to this particular storage, but it doesn't change that I cannot mix my aggregates. Alright, so we'll put down another road. Perfect. And then just to show you the once we do build our rail network, to show you the aggregate storage for trains, you have aggregate loading and unloading. So for loading, I connect this output of the aggregate storage to the input of the loading. You can see the train tracks of this building. So I have a train coming in that's able to take in whatever amount it can handle that's stored in here. And if I wanted to transfer gravel or some other resource from another place, and if this was empty, I could create an unloading station where the train would come in and dump stuff, and then it would have to come in over through here, because this is the input. So because my gravel, we're basically getting all our gravel here, I don't need the unloading portion, but if I was transferring gravel to another industry that I could not get to via conveyor belt from this storage area, then I would do the other option. Alright, so the only other thing missing at this point is a bus station, since this does need workers, and I can tell you we're definitely far away from our city, so our workers would not be able to walk all the way here. And so we have 2 choices. We can either have a bus directly come in here to supply workers, or we can create a bus station, and then the bus station can split up between buildings. Seeing as how we just have the gravel station for now, I'll just create a small minibus service to directly supply this building. But as we build this area up, that's not going to be an option, and we will have to have a bus station. You don't really want to have a minibus going to multiple buildings which are nearby each other, because that's just not efficient. Alright, let's just sit back and see how this goes. So we'll build all of our roads, which hopefully we're getting close to finishing that, since we'll have the gravel for that purpose. And then we will finish our storage to see what it looks like. Oh, and of course this area will have power. So we will have a substation. Where is ours? So our transformer's here, so this isn't too far, so we should be able to drag, use this connection here from our transformer and drag power down here. So we can put this right there, and we can see it's going to power all our structures. And then we can drag our power lines. Let's see, down from here and connect them over here. Perfect. And so that should give us power. Perfect. So here is the, be helpful if I finish the substation. So here is the aggregate storage, so we will only store gravel, and once I select this option, all the other are grayed out, but you can see everything else that I could store. So I find it's odd that I can store quarried stone in this, but there's no way to feed my quarried stone by conveyor belt automatically into my gravel processing plant. And so that becomes really annoying. Theoretically, I could have created a small aggregate storage to have a truck load stone from here to the aggregate plant, and then have another truck take it from the aggregate plant to here. In this case, this is really close together, so I don't need to do that. I suppose you could have a train take the stone and transfer it over large distances to a gravel processing plant, but I generally don't like to do that. Okay, so we have power. Everything is powered, so let's get to our gravel quarry. So the gravel quarry, much like farms and oil, while this says that it needs people, that's actually not true. So you can have either workers working this, or you can just buy a mechanism, which in this case is an excavator. And so we'll just get the highest speed excavator. And this, as you see now, this is able to work on its own without requiring any people. You can see that our quality of source is really good, 88%, so we should be able to be pretty efficient. And the only other thing we have to be aware of is that these vehicles will need fuel. I do have my gas station over here, so I think for now I'll leave this as is. I don't really want to put another gas station here since I think it's going to be wasteful. If we expand this industrial area later, I might put a gas station somewhere down here, but I wanted to supply more than just this area. So they'll have to go down to this gas station, but that's not the end of the world. So now we have to have our excavator, our gravel quarry supply a gravel processing plant. We can do this with one of two ways, a distribution center, or create a route just like we did with our oil vehicle. This gravel processing plant always is using stone and is for the most part empty, so I don't think a distribution center makes much sense, but we'll certainly explore that later on for industries that it's more appropriate for. Because the distribution center is limited in how many vehicles and things it can service, I don't really want to waste it on this. So we're just going to set up an old school transfer by truck. So what I'll do is I'll go to my vehicle depot and buy 3 dumper trucks. And again, we kind of want one that has the most storage. And this choice has the highest speed and the highest engine power, so we'll buy 3 of these. And then what I want to do is have this go to the gravel quarry, load and wait until it gets loaded. We can. It knows since it can only load one item. I'm not going to select stone, so we'll just say to load everything it can, which in this case is stone, and then go here and unload and wait until it's unloaded. And we'll then copy this plan to these other two trucks and launch. And here come our trucks. And the last thing we need is to supply workers. So we'll allow workers to accumulate at our bus station. And again, go back to our vehicle, depot, and look at the option for a bus. This can have up to 15 people working. I never really need that much gravel, so we'll just start off with, let's see how much our vehicle fits. 7 passengers, so yeah, 5 is plenty. So we'll put down 5 passengers. So we'll buy this microbus, and the route that we want is pick up workers at our bus station. Now this is key. You don't want to select workers without an education because again, they're not able to work. So this would essentially, they would fill up the bus, go to the site, and then not do anything. That would waste space and time and fuel. So you just want to make sure you're picking up workers with a basic education or university education. And we're going to unload them directly into the gravel processing plant. And so we can start this as well and see how things go. Here are our trucks heading out. And there should go our minibus. Yep. Perfect. And we just want to make sure that this will have workers. Since I did not tell our citizens to go to the bus stop, we'll have to do that. So it looks like a lot of them don't have work, so I'll probably do like a third. Yeah, that should work. A third of them can go to the bus stop. So we have a worker waiting. And there is our minibus. Now we have a lot of workers waiting, so too many for just that gravel area, but we're on our way. And as this guy comes, he should pick up my workers and transport them to the gravel facility. Here is my truck, my minivan. So you can see that I have 0 workers, 0 passengers, or 0 students, so I just should pick up workers. And we did. So if I increase this, I can see it actually picked up all 7, which is odd because I only need 5. So I'll actually adjust this part down. So its capacity is 7, so we can pick up, I guess, 80%, because that'll be around 5. Because these 2 of these are not going to find work, so they're basically just taking a ride. So if I had another bus coming to take them to another industrial area, I just wasted 2 workers, since they're not going to be able to work until the next day. Okay. How is our oil export going? So, yeah, so this month, so far, we've exported $1,600, and we've imported $3,800 worth of product, so that's nice. We're losing half as much money as we would have otherwise, so good. So that's going to go do its oil route. Where is my bus? Oh, I think it went, yeah, I'm pretty sure it went to the gas station, but that's done now. So again, this is where the time of that the workers are traveling comes into play. If you hover over these, it'll tell you traveling in vehicle and total time traveling. And so it tells you that it can only travel in a vehicle for 4 hours, and they cannot spend more than 5 hours traveling in total. So, just to recap, they will wait at the bus stop only for 1 hour, and then they will travel in the vehicle for 4 hours. And the combination of the travel time cannot exceed 5 hours. If they exceed 5 hours, they automatically go home and do not work for that day. We'll definitely make it in time so that it doesn't come into play, but this is something, again, that you need to take a look at. So this is where we did not plan this appropriately. So we don't have any workers at the plant, and so we are full of quarried stone. And so these guys are waiting to unload. And because while these guys are waiting to unload, this guy can't enter to supply workers. So we probably should have built a bus stop, but what I'll do for now is I will uncheck the wait to unload it, so that way even if it's full, it'll just leave if it can't unload. Of course that wastes fuel and creates more costs, but we do have to supply our industry with workers. Now, if it was a bus stop, that wouldn't happen because the minibus would unload all the workers at the bus stop and they would just walk to this facility. It does not need to enter this space, which is shared with the trucks. Are these workers still, yeah, so they'll make it. So it unloaded, and you can see immediately we have workers in our facility, so all 5. Our quarried stone is being used up. We have gravel, and you can see the little nice animation of the conveyor belt carrying the gravel, and then this being carried to our aggregate storage, and we have gravel. And so now they've ran out of quarried stone, so that's why this stopped. So we probably should have more vehicles. Oh, it's because this guy went to get fuel, so it interrupted the supply chain. So it looks like they're all going to get fuel, so that's fine. We do have people here but not doing anything, but we need to get gas, which makes sense. So now we can assign this gravel, source of gravel, to the construction office. And then this has a... Oh, so this shares this name with this area, which I cannot pronounce, so I think we're going to have to rename this. I'm just going to be very unimaginative and call this Gravel Hill. I apologize for the blandness of the name. Alright, so I'll probably will build a gas station soon. This is taking a while for them to get over there, but again, they're not going to use it all the time. So I do want to be somewhat efficient with my money. I mean, honestly, if I would put a gas station, it would be somewhere to the south of this area. Okay, so let's see how our farms are doing. So we are still sowing these fields, but we're 70% done. So this just gives you an idea of how slow the farming is. And that's why I wanted to put it down sooner rather than later. So our store still has all the stuff. It's selling stuff to people. We have enough sellers and no one's waiting in line. And then our school and our kindergarten is staffed. But the school doesn't have teachers, so the students are in the schoolyard. But this should get better since I do have plenty of educated workers. Well, actually, no, I don't have that many educated workers. I have several. Let's see our population. We have 9 educated workers, so yeah, that should be fine. And I think the last thing we did was set up the alcohol, the pub, for our citizens to get alcohol, and we're buying that. There's too many people working here. At most, we need 2. And I cannot remember if we specified that they should work here. No, we did not. So we'll just specify that very few of them actually need to go to the pub. But at this point, they have work at the fire station, the pub, the shopping center. They can work manning all of these sports fields, school, kindergarten. The farm doesn't need workers just yet, but we do need workers in our gravel processing plant. So we are on our way. So let's see. So this is working pretty well. So we're dumping out the quarried stone. And we have another truck coming in with more stone before the first one runs out. So we're keeping all of our citizens at maximum efficiency, which I like. So it looks like as long as they're not out getting gas, this works. So I think at this point I can go back to have them wait until they're unloaded. Since otherwise I don't want them to just idle and waste fuel, which creates a problem with them going to that fuel station too much, which slows things down. And we have 30 tons of gravel, so that is great. Perfect. Soviet ingenuity. Alright, so I think everything looks like it's working. Our minibus is heading down our main road. Statue of Lenin is overseeing that everyone is doing things properly and has a proper work ethic. And we are building our nascent nation. So I think we will end here. I hope you enjoyed this and this was informative. Tune in for our next episode when we will expand our great city of Leninsk and bring glory to our great Soviet Republic. Bye-bye.